Okay, welcome to this STEM synopsis of interface design, and we're just going to have a quick look at the different syllabus links for interface design. So interface design really takes the perspective of the user, and there are certain things software developers need to consider when they design interfaces, and we're going to go through each of them. But really, it's about who is the audience, how is it structured, the types of screen elements that are selected, and then really trying to see whether is it socially, ethically sound. If we look at this to learn twos, design and evaluate an effective interface. That's mainly what would be assessed using within your practical environment, and the use of RAD as an approach to interface design. So if we look at the key aspects of the content. So we've got consideration of the intended audience. So really what we're looking at here is three areas, and it's just about analysing who you're creating your interface for. So the age, I look at my children and the apps that they use, and often I would say that the buttons, the placement and the size of them is very, very different to what I'm used to. So they're quite large, there's not a lot of text, so their interface has been created with the audience in mind. The level of expertise, so if you look at some games like FIFA and Call of Duty, the audience for them would be people that are very competent software users, so the interfaces are very, very complex. And the language level also relates to age as well, so you must have a good idea of who you're creating the interfaces for. So when we just look at some of the screen elements, it's probably good to go back to the purpose of an interface. And interfaces were created to create a connection between the hardware and software and with the user. So originally we had our command line interfaces where you had to type the names of the folders and the names of the applications and their file extension. Often you found computer users would have a big database book printed out of all, like a phone book of all the different applications that they could call on. Now we have this graphical user interface where we just open up a window and we can click on a file based on its icon. So it's very, very easy to use. There are some screen design principles that have evolved over time that are probably the core of our screens that we interact with. So the first of those is menus. Menus are a really good way in which it allows users to call on sub-programs from the main line. So there's different ways in which that we can use menus. We can use keyboard shortcuts like the Control V here. Or the other aspect is toolbars. So toolbars, you can, if I want to print something, I can click on print on the toolbar. I can press Control P, or I could use the menu to print. So it allows users to use the methods that work for them. And toolbars become a lot more prominent, especially applications like Photoshop, where you can customize, turn on, turn off different toolbars. So when we look at other aspects of screen design principles, is our choice of fonts and not changing the fonts, that element of consistency, the colors and the types of fonts that we use all have to really focus on that readability of the user. Color schemes, most software programming languages that allow you to create interfaces will have a set of color schemes where colors contrast appropriately to show the information. Sometimes developers, they get a little bit excited with the range of colors that they can use and the pictures and different things like that, and can create some issues with the interface. We've also got this use of white space. So use of white space doesn't necessarily mean that everything has to be white. It's just making sure that the interface is not cluttered and confusing to the user. This is a really good example in terms of consistency of screen elements. We've got three different applications, but if you look at, there's some really consistent screen elements there between Word, Excel and PowerPoint. Each of those makes the user feel empowered and find the software easy to use. Move to the next one, which is online help, and there's really two types of help. So help, I have a problem, or help, I need to find some information about a specific thing. Our syllabus says there's four methods for providing help to users, and you won't see probably all four of these in every software application. You'll see different ones for different purposes, but it would be appropriate that every software interface has at least one of these forms of help. So if I have a look at the first one, which is context sensitive, so that's help relating to the specific task that you're undertaking at that point in time. So that's when you hover over maybe a tooltip help, that would be seen as context sensitive. Procedural help is probably the most common in terms of the help information that contains the contents index and search facility. There's lots of case tools that will create this documentation for us. And a lot of it now is also online, so it can be easily updated without sending a patch through. Conceptual help is that kind of why rather than how. So once again, that question mark, which you can hover, and it tells you, why this is there, or rather than giving you specifics in how. The other one's tutorial and wizards, which games are really good at doing. They'll make you go through a tutorial before they'll allow you to play the game. Consistency. So some of these overlap a bit, but consistency is that consistent placement of elements within the user interface that really empowers the user. The Microsoft example, I've got another one here, which is Flash and Photoshop. Just very, very similar layout and consistency within this interface, which the user can open up an application that they may not feel that they have an expert knowledge in, but will have enough of an idea to really get them started in using it. So it's that repeated placement of elements using file menus, toolbars, all of those things. Also feedback, giving a user feedback when tasks may take an excessive amount of time, and forgiveness. So making sure that the user has opportunities to, especially with deleting, making sure they really want to delete it. That's an element of forgiveness. For social and ethical issues, I'm just going to go through the iPhone, Mac OS software. I think that's a really good example of how a user interface has been created with a social and ethical understanding. So different options and different ways of which of accessing commonly used functions. So that's one example. Magnify and zoom is another social and ethical aspect of how this interface has been created. Voice commands of Siri, text to speech, voiceover, screen colors, so the ability in which to people with visual impairments connecting to hearing aids, and assistive touch. So they're all social and ethical aspects of a user interface. Common practices, so we're just going to look at some of the common aspects of screen elements. So radio buttons and checkboxes, most screen elements will have at least one of these. The best way I find to differentiate them is radio buttons like a multiple choice question. It's one or the other. You cannot be both. You can't be digital and analog. And then checkboxes are multiple. So you can tick multiple, like what's my favorite sports. So there's not meaning one. Text boxes generally require an input. So they would be something where a value is obtained from a user. Labels just provide information. User cannot interact with them at all. So that's user ID and password. They're examples of labels. Text boxes, we enter something into it. Drop-down lists and list boxes. There's a list box there. List boxes are static. That's all that's in there. Drop-down lists are dynamic, so you can actually add things to them. Scroll bars, something we probably wouldn't realize is that scroll bars output a numerical value when they're moved. So there's, as I move this along here, it would actually add numerical data, and that's how we can increase the screen size by using a scroll bar. And the last aspect of probably features is the mobile phone interface elements. So that there are certain things that mobile phones have brought to use interfaces in the way that they're designed. Probably a good example with the iPhone is the pinch and zoom aspect and the ability to kind of scroll with your finger. They're aspects of user interfaces that have evolved from mobile phones. And they're the key aspects of interfaces.